Friends! Besties! How do I turn this shit off? Whew. Friends, oh my God. Hello. Happy Transit Chat Sunday. New day for the friends, for the pod, for the video. Yes, haircut. Haircut. It's a lot shorter than it usually is. But I like that for me sometimes. Cause I do feel like the longer curls give teenager, which is fine. The shorter curls are a little bit too masculine and adult for me. Sometimes I'm like, what is this? A man. But sometimes that's fun too. And as you all know, I start my new job next week. So not this current week, but the coming week. And I need to be a professional. Do I need to be a professional? I don't know. Allegedly, your boy has an office. I don't know if he means I have my own little office room or if I'm like got an office space, but he said to me that if I wanted to come in after orientation next Monday and bring in personal items for my office, to me that says winter is accidentally important at work. So I don't know. We're gonna find out. But I just came back from the car wash because child, my car was a mess. And as you all know, Emily is coming to visit for a brief layover tonight. So I needed to get my life together. I still need to get my life together, but I wanted to spend some time with you guys first. Because what the fuck just happened in the sky last week? And specifically yesterday and the day before. Ew, right? So I think we should unpack. I don't have anything planned to talk about because my life is in disarray. But I have been doing lots of readings with you guys. Shout out to y'all for filling my books up. I've been talking to a lot of y'all, and that has made me have to think about the astrology a little bit more, which I love because it's a lot easier to get a grasp on what's happening and how it's affecting people when I can actually talk to people. So, that's what's going on with me. And if we haven't met before, hi, it's your boy Mix Mercury, the Astro Himbo, and this is our weekly transit chat. Let me say hello to y'all in the chat. Hi, Daria. Thank you for setting us off. What's up, Dr. Deb? April, happy Sunday. I know, so weird to see you guys on a weekend. The weather is excellent today. And yes, please, if you haven't already liked the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed already. I only spam you once a week, so it's totally worth it and not annoying, I promise. Hi, Abigail. Good to see you, Abby. Hey, bestie. Y'all, I indoctrinated Samaje into the Wicked fan club. So we have another lover. I've seen it 3 times now. And it's just, it gets better every time. I feel like it's such a long movie. It's hard to process everything in the first go around. And so the second and the third, you just catch more and more things. And you're like, wow, how is this story and this picture and these actresses? Everybody's just so fantastic. So I'm into it. Yes, happy Sunday in Dystopia Land. Thank you so much for your compliments. Yes, blessed are the cheesemakers. Monty Python reference for those who know. Yes, hopefully there's an office with the door to close and I can have my little air purifier in there. And then I could have a little humidifier with some hypochlorous acid in there. Like, it would just be so nice to have my own little space. That way, if I need to have a little snack and decompress and step away during one of those 8 hours, I can without having to go all the way outside to my car. Hillary, hi. Hello, hello. I too mourn the wicked. Yeah, see, I never saw the musical, I never saw the Broadway play, never read the books, didn't know anything about it, and then once I saw the movie, I was like, "How have I gone my whole life not knowing about this story?" It's literally a fixed sign anthem from start to finish, but it's exceptionally, especially a Scorpio Aquarius anthem. So I'm just like, how? It's an allegory on politics and fascism and anti-blackness and all of these different things. Like, it's so timely. Yeah, we didn't know anything going into it, and then whenever because I've been begging Samaj to watch this for weeks because I saw it on January 1st, even though it came out end of November, and ever since then I've been like, everybody needs to see this movie. Like, it's incredible from start to finish. Every aspect of, like, the best movie I've ever seen personally. So I don't know. I just go watch it after this if you have time today. Find a link. Go to the theater if you feel so called. Do whatever you got to do, but it's fantastic. I really don't play about Wicked. It's so good. I would die for them. The fact that Ariana Grande could actually convince you that she's Glinda, like, and the way Cynthia completely transforms into Elphaba is unreal. It's just, and the story, I was telling Samajai what I love about it the most is that the story, like, just when you think you know what's going to happen, if you don't already know what's going to happen, you're surprised constantly, like, oh, I didn't know that this was gonna take a turn in this direction. It was just like, oh. So yeah. Anyway, what is going on? So last week, well, first of all, this week there's nothing going on. So please enjoy this week, and you can watch the moon. This is a good week to watch the moon because there's nothing really happening except for the end of the week. We have Venus retrograde conjunct the sun, which is relevant. And then next week is pretty much building up to the eclipse and Saturn in Pisces. So this is a good week to watch the moon if you want to know how the moon functions and like what it really does in transit, since it's hard to observe the moon when there's a whole bunch of other stuff building up. This week we'll have the moon will enter Libra later today, and then it'll be in Scorpio and Sagittarius by the end of the week, and probably by Sunday it'll be in Capricorn again. So that's what we're looking at. If you haven't already bought the 2025 iCals, they are still available in my shop. Please, I was gonna say, don't buy a physical astrotherapy journal from me for a minute, just because I'm doing a lot of tax stuff and I need to not sell more physical things because there's things going on. But you're more than welcome to buy the digital version of the astrotherapy journal if you haven't already. I mean, I should really discount it, but all of this is just paying for the labor and all of the things that I still need to pay Emilia for. So there's that. What was I talking about? Oh, yeah. So pretty much last week, tell me if this was y'all's experience. So I know I said weeks ago that the Leo eclipse was going to sneak up on us, and it definitely snuck up on me and my Mars. That was like not totally obvious, but once it got here, then I was like retrospectively, oh, okay, yeah, of course I've like been super fucking busy dealing with a bunch of different things and not really like sitting down to self-reflect and process what's actually been going on. And then once the eclipse actually passed late on Friday night, early morning, depending on how you look at it, I was like, okay, I see. There's lots of conversations about identity happening, lots of conversations about different, like, specific identities coming up. There was the whole pop culture moment of Doechii being on the Hot Ones to go, the kind of great value Hot Ones version with her friend, and the whole like straight men are a red flag thing that sent the internet up in flames. There was the gym owner lady who originally was like, yeah, this gym is going to be a safe space for all women, including trans women, and then came back and reneged and was like, actually, only biological women in this gym, which brought up a whole bunch of other conversations. There was some other smaller conversations. Well, I say smaller because I wasn't on socials as much to like really keep up with it, but there were conversations around feminism and some people being anti-feminist. I actually had a tweet go viral about misogyny and cats, which was super random, but it was one of those ones where I tweeted it that morning and I was like, I feel like for whatever reason this might go viral because eclipse in my third house, it'd be like that for me. Somebody asked, like, why is it so socially acceptable? Why is it more socially acceptable to hate cats than dogs or something like that? And I commented saying that, like, on the surface, I feel like it's just a boundaries and control issue thing because, cats actually have boundaries and people don't like when I don't know, people just don't like when anything has boundaries, let alone animals. Um, and that cats are a little bit harder to control because they're their own people, right? And then I was like, so yeah, I was like, on the surface, I think it's a boundary and control issue, but deep down, I think it's misogyny. I do have reasons for why I said this, but I also just kind of said it because those two things go hand in hand. And it seems like I'm actually very curious. I have to look and see what it's at because I muted it because I didn't want to hear anybody else's thoughts about it anymore. But it really, it really took off. And I don't even have a blue check anymore. So I was like, oh, y'all really agreed with this, or it ruffled a lot of feathers. So I want to see what it's at currently because I think this is an interesting conversation for Leo things that generally deal with men and patriarchy and um authority and dominance and all that shit. So where is it? Also, if y'all have any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. Yes, it is at a million views. So scary. So much visibility on that tweet. 37,000 likes on a bitch. And anytime you go viral, by the way, on any platform, but especially Twitter, X, or you just get a little bit of traction, check the lists that you're on in case somebody weird puts you on a list and is gonna like brigade you with harassment campaigns. Just check your lists anytime you get way too much visibility because weirdos are on the internet, and do your protections as well. But yeah, so the reason that I said misogyny in that sense was because I think cats, at least in American culture and like kind of Western societies, cats are kind of embody a little bit more of the like feminine archetype. In the sense of being like small and cute and fluffy and just like soft, and they have the appearance of being kind of dainty even though they're not. They literally are indestructible. But I think people just in America at least kind of always associate cats with the feminine, and so the fact that cats are associated a little bit more with the feminine and you can't control them and they have their own boundaries is very similar to attitudes towards women and like wanting women to be submissive and soft and feminine and dainty and all this stuff and compliant and servile whenever it's like get a grip. And so the fact that cats and women have minds of their own, okay, then and want to be their own people really throw a fit whenever that's the case. So I feel like it's kind of a similar thing with cats being associated with women, dogs being associated with men oftentimes, even though that's not the reality. But I think just the unconscious, subconscious associations people have with different animals really influences the way that they think those animals should behave. And I do find it to be very ironic because dogs are a lot more obedient and submissive and can be trained to be cops. And I love dogs, mind you. I love cats. I've owned both at various points in my life. So it's just like people are weird. People are weird about animals. Um, so yeah, anyway, so those have been a lot of the themes around the eclipse. There have been some other things going on that I just politically that I'm tuned out of, so I can't really comment on that too much. But stuff dealing with Ukraine and stuff dealing with Palestine obviously still ongoing, and our involvement with those things is escalating. Trump is like low key trying to steal Canada, and then as we know, trying to steal Greenland. So there's all of that kind of dominant stuff, and people just really eat that shit up. They really love whenever he gets on his like authoritarian Zoom. So embarrassing to me personally, but we ball. Um, so yeah, I don't know. Those are some kind of pop culture things going on. I don't know if y'all have any to add. And then what really gagged me was Mercury stationary retrograde yesterday. Holy shit. Like the whole day I had to work yesterday, my last shift at my part-time job. And every Saturday I've worked 8 to 4 for the last like year and a half. So that's why I haven't been available to do things on Saturdays ever. since then. And it was like it's like technological issues abound with every Mercury retrograde. Miscommunications or just like communication errors, like not fully saying a complete thought and making a lot of assumptions, or just like Mercury in Pisces in general, but especially Mercury retrograde in Pisces is one of the most frustrating to me because of the way that like people just don't use their words. They either don't use their words or they're not using them fully. Like unintentionally and sometimes intentionally just leaving whole words out or whole thoughts out, leaving out context. And then there's also the very annoying thing of like when you say something and what you said versus what the other person heard and what they made it mean to them versus what you actually meant. And then that ends up being a whole debacle. So it's just one of my least favorite retrogrades. There's no need to like fearmonger around it whenever it's mostly this type of like inconvenience. But because it's wrapped up with Venus retrograde in Pisces and the upcoming eclipse in Pisces and Saturn entering Pisces, it's just a lot. It's just a lot happening, So it feels big. It definitely feels big to me in ways that I don't fully understand. I definitely see how it's impacting me personally, but collectively, I'm just like, there's so much going on that we're not like verbally speaking about. And if we are speaking about it, there's a lot of leaping and bounding to conclusions that, are mostly uncertainties. There's all of the uncertainty of just like, I don't know where any of this is going. And what is life going to be like in 6 months? So, I think what we talked a little bit about last week with contradictions feels really relevant to all of this because, actually, that is something that I wanted to talk about. Jupiter and Taurus, I don't know if I talked about this enough, but Jupiter and Taurus, I think, has also been, depending on which end of the political spectrum you're on, but for this conversation, I want to speak more to the left and all of the spectrum of political positioning on the left. Um, Jupiter and Taurus has been a lot of like emphasis on political correctness. And maybe I've talked about this before, or maybe I haven't, or I've used other words, but I was listening to my Around the Way Curls podcast talk about political correctness as two people who are on the left and on further left than most. And how like we can be so strict with each other in the way that allegedly people on the right don't get as hung up on, because people on the right don't really give a shit if they offend you. They just like they have a goal and they want to achieve this goal. I'm sure they have their own version of infighting. But for the most part, if someone like makes a misstep, they're not really they're not really going out of their way to like cancel people. And y'all just bear with me. They're not going out of the way. Like you notice, like this is a perfect example. You notice how I'm like really trying to make sure that I say exactly what I mean and that I'm anticipating somebody is going to take what I say out of context and run away with it. Y'all don't usually do that. But many of us who were like in the Div for Lib group had this experience of just feeling like really having to tiptoe around each other to not say the wrong thing or to not like be wrong about a certain ideology or to like not offend anybody. There's just a lot of care that is taken, which I think it's good to take care and being considerate. But I do think it gets to a point where you can't fucking say what you mean, or you can't just say a thing and it be taken in good faith. It's like immediately you say the wrong thing and people villainize you. So being politically incorrect is like detrimental for us on the left. And I think it can hinder a lot of movements. And there's just kind of an unwillingness to listen and learn that I think is also involved in that. But anyway, all of this to say, when we talk about like Taurus and assimilation and not wanting to offend people, wanting to receive people or be received, wanting to be accepting and wanting other people's approval or giving other people our approval, all of those things, political correctness, I find also falls in that realm. And we want to do a good job and we want to get it right. And I think a lot of times, especially online, um, people take things out of context. I did kind of see that come up a lot on a few different of my podcasts that I listen to regularly, where people were kind of just lamenting the fact that it's really hard to just have a conversation about things that matter, um, including identity politics, right? Including different economic ideologies and theories, like including all of those things. We should be able to talk about those things in a way that doesn't immediately lead to us like casting each other in a bad light or saying someone's disingenuine or saying that someone's not left enough, right? Granted, some people aren't left enough, and I do think that's true when the Overton window has shifted so far right that, a lot of people be spouting right-wing ideologies and don't realize it. But nonetheless, um, this idea of like how tricky it is to assign good faith to people who we feel like we're more aligned with than not, and how tricky it is to want to take people at good faith and give people the benefit of the doubt, but also s- dealing with situations where people don't deserve the benefit of the doubt necessarily, or at the very least, you should just trust your first instinct on that person and the thing that they said and how it made you feel and all of that stuff. So I feel like a lot of that's wrapped up in this too, as kind of a climax of Jupiter and Taurus with this Jupiter ruled eclipse, where just everybody's so fucking suspicious of each other. Like people who are more or less on the same side of things, or at least want more of the same things and they want different things, like overly suspicious and skeptical of each other and can't just like, I don't know, be a little bit more pragmatic, I would say. Be a little bit more practical in the way that we're dealing with each other. It's just kind of like sometimes we got to be people. Sometimes your humanity, like your authenticity gets lost in the performance of trying to be good, in the performance of goodness and political correctness. It's like, okay, at some point you like stop being a person, which then you get into the whole Leo thing of now you have yourself up on this pedestal where there's an expectation of you to be perfect and politically correct all the time. And then what happens when you say one thing wrong or you don't fully understand something and you make a comment on it, and then it spirals into this whole thing where now you've been knocked and shoved off the pedestal and people are just kind of like shitting on you and saying that you were never real to begin with. It's like to some extent you kind of weren't being super real to begin with if you ended up on that pedestal because you were overly performing in a way that was not probably authentic. So now you get this experience of like being exposed, and now people see your true colors and whatever else is going on, and it's like just a lot of projection in that way. So I do think that's something that is kind of always happening with these transits, and that's been happening in various ways over the last year with Jupiter and Taurus. So Jupiter and Taurus definitely in the spotlight for this next eclipse, and then the friction of Taurus and Leo together is a lot of that, like, yes, wanting to be accepted and approved of and validated for doing the right thing, but also losing yourself in your own authenticity and contradictions and just the ways that you practically have to survive these systems kind of gets lost in the sauce as well. So how do you guys like find grace for yourself and find that balance between, I'm trying to be as in alignment with myself, my politics, my beliefs as possible, but I'm also really trying to not have people coming after me with pitchforks and with knives and pitchforks whenever I get it wrong. And what are some ways, like something I think about a lot for myself, especially after relationship school, is like, and this is kind of a mercurial thing, is like the ways that you are treated whenever you get it wrong, and like the condescension that comes up from other people who think that they know better or who do actually like have studied and learned and gone through the rigor of educating themselves, and then or people who think that they know better than you and they don't really, like there's both aspects of this. So you do your best to like learn more and to seek out the information that you maybe have been ignorant to before, or just didn't have the full context or full understanding of something. And now you're the person who does actually know better than you did before, but now you're afraid to speak on it because you're waiting for someone to tell you, like, no, that's not it. Well, actually, it's this. Well, but like waiting for somebody to correct you or to criticize you or to critique you in a way that is not necessarily effective or impactful, it just kind of makes you feel bad about yourself, you know? So then you're like doubting whether you know anything, or you're doubting your own like intellect because you're anticipating somebody correcting you, um or shaming you for not getting it exactly right the first time and stuff like that. So that's another thing I think about a lot with these transits, and how we can be so self-critical then because we're anticipating somebody criticizing us, that then it turns us into being more critical of other people as well when they make mistakes or they fuck up, because it's that whole thing of not realizing you're doing the same thing to other people that they do to you. I think that's something that comes up a lot as well with well-meaning people, you know. The posturing is another kind of Leo thing. The posturing of like being this person and this authority on this subject or this topic or this ideology or just whatever it is in your personal life. It doesn't even have to be political. If you're in a position of authority or power or leadership, and like really having to posture as a person who knows, you know, who everybody else can follow. Like a lot of pressure that comes with that, that I think ends up separating you from your own humanity. And again, it just makes it hard for you to be a person, you know, or to crack a joke, or to I don't know, just like be silly and off color and politically incorrect sometimes. So it's not that I necessarily think people should be, you know, offensive and inappropriate, but it's just kind of like, you know, to what end, I guess, are we making these corrections whenever we make them? To what end are we making these critiques whenever we're making them? Like, what is the actual practical or pragmatic implication or implementation of some of these critiques? Or are we just trying to make ourselves feel better and more correct, you know, or more virtuous or whatever than someone else? And how that's kind of dissolves our own movements. So I don't know. Um, some thoughts off the top of my head that have come up over the last week or so. Back in the day, I used to read Beyond a lot about group dynamics, and it has been coming up again. Yeah. Because that even came up in the conversation about fascism. The history of fascism was like the whole group ideology and the way that people disappear into groups and take on behaviors and I don't know, these like behavior patterns that they otherwise wouldn't do as individuals, but because you're in the group, it becomes like, I don't know, the like hive mind of it all. Some socials are private, or I remove people I don't want to have on my stuff. Also don't engage with people for the sake of winning an argument. That's real. That actually comes up a lot, I think, with mutable transits, is like the whole do you want to be right or do you want to be in relationship thing, or like, you know, are you just trying to win an argument to make yourself look intelligent, or are you actually, is the argument, because like arguing, especially in relationships and groups, is not bad. It's not wrong. Like debates, they're not bad, they're not wrong, but they become an issue whenever you're one trying to win. You know, you're like doing it in this way that's competitive and you're not actually like taking in new perspective or information from the other side. You're just really trying to like impose your vision, your perception into the group. Um which I catch myself doing that. That's like a really bad habit of mine that I've gotten a lot better at, but before, especially like during the Differlib era, all day. Like, because it feels good to be heard and it feels good to have people like actually take you seriously and take your word for things sometimes. But then yeah, you can take it too far as being like you always have to be the loudest voice in the room, and sometimes you really don't, you know. But yeah, is the purpose of the argument to sharpen the perspectives of both people who are arguing, or to like refine your arguments, or to come to some sort of conclusion with a more broader perspective, or are you just trying to like shut other people up and dominate the conversation? Something I think about a lot as well. I recently asked a group of folks for help, for asking a group to require masks at an event because I wanted accountability with my trust and faith in others without being so intense. Um, they led the conversation with said group because I didn't have the capacity to do the conversation. I did provide sources of information and guided the conversation. So what I think you're saying is w- wanting accountability with my trust and faith in others. Can you word that another way? It's not registering in my brain a way that I need it to, but I feel like I'm kind of get what you're saying, like delegating, delegating more responsibility to other people instead of it just being you having to do it, and then also like other people taking part in something that you wanted. Is that what you're saying? I've probably been enjoying people coming for Schumer too much, but I'm a longtime hater. I assume Schumer like Chuck Schumer, Amy Schumer, who Schumer. To crack a joke and be silly reminds me of the super militant people and like y'all don't have fun. Yeah, like, and I do think that gets tricky because it's like punching down is not really funny. Um, but there are ways that I think you can be satirical, or you can be like dry, or just kind of, I don't know. Sometimes you like are poking fun at people on your level that I think is normal. Like just when people take things too far and you talk about it and it's like, or you crack a joke about it or whatever amongst friends. But I do think there's something to be said for like how much visibility and influence you have with just in the world. Like if you have a platform and you do kind of like need to be responsible because again, your word holds value for whatever reason and influence. So if you are using your platform to use the R word, it's like probably don't do that. We don't need more people thinking it's okay to use the R word. You know, like stuff like that. It's like there's a limit of whenever you are also playing a role in shaping other people's like mindsets and attitudes towards other groups of people. Like probably don't want to contribute to that. But if it's like you and the homies and y'all are having a conversation about like people within your own groups doing things that you also do sometimes, and like I don't know, roasting in that sense, like I think there's space for roasting, right? But I don't know, it's tricky. I know people that comes up a lot with like comedy and stuff like that too, and I do think it's possible to like have fun with something or be funny about something or just be like cheeky about something without going overboard and being borderline like rude and offensive. But you know, it's tricky. um I'm always so relieved when people care about masking. Same, totally. What is constructive feedback responding to? And like that's the other thing, is it constructive? Are you just like critiquing to critique to again sound smart and kind of like blow smoke up your own ass, or are you actually trying to um open up a conversation about a thing that's going to again I think the point for me, and maybe this being like a lead into Jupiter and Gemini, is like when you're having conversations, is the goal to open up and broaden your perspective, or are you really trying to like confine people to thinking about or engaging with something in one way, because that's when it starts to get kind of culty. Like you're only allowed to think about this thing in this one way. Like, I don't know about that. Um, I struggle to trust others with promoting masking and ensuring that a space is safe. To promote masking without me having to dominate the space or conversation to be around masking. Yes, okay, I understand what you're saying. Um, I'm a Scorpio moon, so I'm working on my intense distrust in groups that have been enabling super spreaders, but trying to tell them to do better with information without being intense. This actually came up a few times. Well, this obviously has come up several times in readings, but this did come up a lot over the last week. And it's something I think about a lot too, because if we're talking about, and this goes for everything too, not just masking, but like when it comes to like changing behaviors in other people and like social behaviors and attitudes towards certain things, like coming at people with information, even if the information is accurate and correct and there are multiple studies and all of this stuff, like people just don't respond well to information, especially like info dumping. Sorry to my neurodivergent folks, unless they share that interest, right? But like normies, for the most part, just don't respond well to information because their eyes kind of glaze over. And I'm sure maybe you have a thing where you feel that way. Someone starts like talking at you about a thing and your eyes just kind of glaze over because you're like, I don't know what the fuck this person is talking about. This is above my pay grade. And so it's like, you know, stories are better than facts. And then there's also one way somebody was talking about sharing information, especially when someone has a strong bias against something, is to speak about the positives of doing the thing rather than the negatives of not doing the thing. So with masking, it's just like if someone asks, well, why do you still mask? I always like want to go into a whole diatribe about COVID, but instead I'm just like, I just don't want to get sick. I like the fact that, I've been wearing a mask for so long and I truly haven't gotten sick, knock on wood. In situations where I've masked, it's like, it's not perfect. Sometimes, you just get unlucky and your mask doesn't seal that well that day or whatever's going on. And yeah, maybe you catch something, but for the most part, 9 times out of 10, if I'm masking, I don't get sick. And so I just like to not be sick. And then people will have their reasons why they can't mask and whatever else, but or they provide their own anecdotes, so it's like sometimes you just got to meet anecdotes with other anecdotes, right? Or encouraging behaviors with like positive reinforcement or just like positive attitudes usually goes over a lot better, or telling stories goes over a lot better, but sometimes just throwing a bunch of facts at people turns people off or turns people away. So I do wonder, like, what are the moments that people are actually receptive to facts and information versus stories, or just like sharing perspectives and things like that too, because it can get really frustrating, I think. And I think I've talked about this before as well with like relationship conflict stuff, because that always comes up during Virgo and Pisces transits, but especially Pisces transits, because again, like I don't think we realize, this is something I learned a lot with doing readings over the years. I think in the beginning, because I was still learning and still like trying to figure out my style of doing readings and sharing information, that it was really easy for me to just like regurgitate the things that I'd memorized about a sign or a placement or whatever it was that I was observing. And a lot of that is me trying to get the repetition in of like these ideas and sharing them. But then I'd be sharing them with someone who is coming from like no background, no context, no idea what I'm saying. And I know I still do that on these lives because I'm still working on like public communication in that way. And so the more familiar you get with a technical idea and the more practice you have sharing that technical idea with other people in layman's terms, the easier it is for them to receive the content of what it is that you're trying to share. And then especially like in relationships, whenever you're dealing with emotions, like trying to manage your emotions and someone else's emotions while conveying a message, like you really do have to speak to the emotional part of the other person's mind or being instead of the factual, technical, like logistical aspects. Um, I was listening to a podcast on my Therapist Uncensored podcast a long time ago about communication and where people get it wrong. And it really is whenever you try to be factual and logistical in an emotional argument. Because, and what I mean by that is like using more words, like words become threatening to the mind and the emotions at some point. like if you're in an emotionally heightened argument, words start to become threatening and like more information, like the over explaining or um just like holding your audience captive kind of way of just like speaking at in a one-to-one conversation, it turns people's brains off, you know, and it makes people become more defensive and self-protective, and they're just not registering anything that you're saying. Like they straight up can't hear you after a while. And so it'll feel like you're talking to a brick wall because all they can hear in themselves is like the meaning that they've given to this conflict, which like sounds weird, but like you've been on the receiving end of that. When someone is coming at you with a lot of words in an emotionally tense conversation, you're just like, your brain is just like, this is too much. I don't know what the fuck you're saying. I can't hear anything that you're saying. I can't make sense of anything that you're saying because all I can hear are my own feelings. All I can feel are my own feelings and my own narrative that I've imposed on this conversation. So nothing you're saying is getting through to me. Yeah, family is another play. Your parents, trying to talk to your parents. But this is something that I think is very Pisces that is like hard to articulate. And so I have to find new ways to talk about it every year, but it's true like when you like okay. So I'm trying to think of an example, like a personal example without oversharing. Um so what do I want to talk about? Okay, so hey HP. I feel like you might have just arrived at the right time. You might have just arrived at the right time, friend. um okay, so do I want to talk about this? Okay, so we're like in the middle of this eclipse, right? This Leo eclipse, and the themes around humiliation and like feeling small or feeling inadequate in some kind of a way and not measuring up to a certain expectation. And so if I'm like, okay, I'll talk about taxes. That works. That's neutral enough for me. So I had to let go of an accountant that I was working with for the last like since 2021 because they just weren't doing their job basically. And so coming around to tax season this year, because I just let them go a couple of months ago, there are like so many different things that like loose ends that were just not tied up and a whole bunch of different things that I probably needed to do last year before like selling the journals and all of this other stuff, before like leveling up in my business stuff. And so there were a lot of things that just didn't happen. And so I'm meeting with an accountant from H&R Block and she tells me like, one, I keep trying to tell her like what my situation is and like, hey, like let's hop on a call sometime so I can like tell you all like why all of this is such a mess. And she's just kind of like not listening to me. She's just asking me for the documents that she needs. And there's no like further conversation. She's just like doing her thing, punching in the numbers, doing whatever. And I'm like getting increasingly frustrated as we go on because every time I send her a document or whatever, I'm telling her, so I've never done this myself. I've usually had a bookkeeper doing it for me. So if you can help me like go through these things and make sure I actually did it correctly, that would be super helpful. And she would just respond and not actually like do anything. She would just take the information I gave her and be like, hey, so it looks like you've been doing XYZ thing. Have you filed for a sales tax permit? Have you done this? Have you done that? And I'm like getting this feedback and I'm like, girl, I don't know what I'm doing. So first of all, help me with these numbers. Help me get these things. Like, why do I need this thing? I didn't know I was supposed to do this thing. So whole time she's demanding all of this information from me. I'm freaking out because I feel like a shitty business owner, right? So everything she's saying to me is registering to me not as her just like requesting information from me because this is happening over text, right? But I'm not registering it as her requesting information from me. I'm registering it as you're such a shitty business owner. Why haven't you done all of these things? Why don't you have all of this stuff together? Well, because you put all of these things to because you've like did this in this way and because you have this much blah 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 that it's a possibility that the IRS is gonna, need these things from you and I can't be held responsible for that. Blah 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 blah. So I was just like, girl, like this is sending me on a shame spiral because I feel like I'm out of control and I don't know what's going on and I'm about to owe the IRS $1 million even though I don't even make that much money. And so I'm gonna have all these fees and all these penalties, and oh my god, like I should have done these. I'm like freaking out, and this lady is just kind of like, yeah. So like when you get all this stuff together, let me know. So after consulting with the homies, I was like, you know what? I am paying you to help me, and you're not helping me. You're not listening to me. This is not a back and forth. I'm gonna ask somebody else because it just feels like we are not on the same page. And so instead of like beating myself up and just like what I was going to do was just like assume all of the responsibility and all of the fallout of whatever was going to happen and let it be imperfect so I could just get it done. But I was like, no, there's still time for me to file a extension. So let me just call up H&R and have a customer service complaint and say, hey, I would like to work with someone else because I just feel like me and this person are not vibing. Like I'm saying things and she's not hearing me and it's just not working out. So can I just talk to somebody else? So then they put me on with a different accountant. And when I tell you night and day, like she immediately calls me, makes an appointment for us to talk on the phone the next day. And she says to me, like, yeah, so tell me more about like what your situation is. I explained to her, and she's like, oh, okay, I see. Like, yeah, you definitely have a lot of different things going on, and it makes sense that you're confused. And she's like, but you know what? This is good for me. I like a challenge. So we're gonna figure this out. Do you know like how much I was apologizing to this other lady for being like, I'm so sorry. This is all like such a mess. Like, I feel so bad. I know I'm creating more work from you. If there's anything that I need to do, but I'm just like flailing because I feel bad that I'm burdening this lady with so much work, even though it's her job to help me with all of this shit. Like, for her, for these accountants, right? Like this is what they do. This is the function that they serve in society. This is what they have done all of the studying and researching and all of these things for, is so that people like me who don't know shit about that can burden them with all of the stuff that they know how to do. So it probably doesn't feel like as big of a deal to them as it does to me, someone who is like trying to read up what any of these terminology means. If you're the person who already knows, it's not that serious. So to switch to work with someone who was just like, yeah, you know what? This is good for me. I like a challenge. Completely like I could have cried because I was like, wow, this is what it's like to ask someone for help and not feel like a burden because they just want to help you, because I'm like that. Like if y'all come to me and y'all want coaching from me or relationship advice or reading or whatever it is, and you have this big problem in your life that you just feel like is so insurmountable and that you feel, emotionally dysregulated around it and all of this stuff, and you bring it to me, I'm excited. I'm not excited that you're suffering, mind you, but I'm excited that I get to help you with my expertise because it is a challenge and we like to be challenged, to some extent. We do like to be challenged in our jobs in the sense that like the challenge is what makes you feel like you're actually worth something in that role, that you're able to untangle a situation that somebody else is struggling with and can't do themselves. It's nice to feel like you're useful and of value, or at least me. Maybe I'm just an earth son, I don't know. But I like feeling useful and like, my impact is measured by my ability to like help you out of this situation that is overwhelming you. So if I know I like to help people in that sense and that it's fulfilling to me, like no, you're not burdening me, you're not being difficult, you're not being like unreasonable or whatever. You're asking me for help and I have some tools to help you. So let me help you. So that just like totally the way the stress left my body. And since then, I've just been able to relax and know that this will get taken care of and we're working as a team instead of someone just kind of like rushing through trying to solve this problem without actually like getting full information on what's actually going on. But I bring all of that up to say like I feel like that happens a lot. That just happens a lot professionally, relationally, whatever, where we are trying to navigate a conflict or a situation, and the way that we feel about ourselves and the stories that we tell ourselves about ourselves while we're navigating a situation um can make it harder for us to actually like deal with the situation at hand, because now I'm shame spiraling into a pit of freaking what's it called, self-deprecation, and blaming myself or shaming myself or beating myself up for not knowing and for not getting it right the first time or whatever it is. When in reality, how am I supposed to know everything? How am I supposed to know everything? How are they supposed to know everything? And what I think is going on and what they see is going on are two different things. And what we really need to do is both say what we are perceiving is going on in the situation. And then when someone is telling you what they perceive is going on in that situation, you just take that in as like, "Oh, that's what they think is going on. Interesting. Okay. Now that I kind of understand what you think is going on, let me tell you what I feel like is going on." And now that we both have objectified our experience in the situation as these are the things that we need to solve, I don't have to be a bad person and you don't have to be a bad person. We're just two people trying to figure out what these things are and how they intersect and how they go together and how they can resolve each other. And now I don't have to call you a horrible, manipulative, narcissistic, blah 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 blah, whatever other insult, and you don't have to do that to me, and we can just skip all that. We can leave all of that, all of the inadequacies that we feel about ourselves and the other person out of the conversation and just deal with the actual issue. But it takes a lot of emotional intelligence and practice and self-regulation to do that. It's very difficult. But that stuff I think about a lot, like, especially as someone who works a lot of, like, service-oriented jobs. Like, people come in and I have no idea what the fuck is going on. Like, you know how it is when people just come in, you dealing with customers or clients or whoever it is, and they just don't know what's going on. And we have to be able to have the patience. This kind of goes back to the whole Mercury condescension thing too, but we have to have the patience to like see it from their perspective of like, damn, they just don't know what's going on, do they? But I know what's going on. Let me help them know what's going on so that they can feel less confused and all over the place and disorganized and whatever else. Or so they feel supported, you know, without me calling them stupid. But when you've helped a bunch of people in the day who don't really know what's going on, it does get tiring. It also gets tiring whenever you've told people, kind of goes back to masking, when you've told people a number of times what the answer is or the solution is or whatever it is, and they just like don't listen to you, they don't hear you. And you're like, why am I repeating myself when I already said this? And you know what? And it goes the other way too. Whenever you're the customer trying to talk to the employee or whoever it is, and they're just not listening to you because they think in their minds that they have the situation figured out, and you're trying to tell them, no, that's not what the issue is. This is what the issue is. you know, can you say back to me what you think I said or what you heard me say? Because this is not getting anywhere. um, so anyway. I don't know. These are the things. These are the things that I feel like are very Mercury retrograde in nature and also just very Pisces in nature, where everybody thinks things mean something different. And what we really need to talk about is what you think this means and what I think this means and why we both think it means that. when the reality is all the way over here. Neither of us are talking about the reality. We're talking about this over here. And there's space for us to talk about this over here, but usually this over here, what I think it means and what you think it means, those are projections, man. That's what I'm projecting into the conversation. That's what you're projecting into the conversation. I probably wasn't thinking about you as being super what's it called, incapable and inadequate. Maybe a small teeny tiny part of me was thinking that, but ultimately it's a projection because that's what I think about myself if I'm in your shoes and I don't know what I'm doing or what's going on or if I need help. I'm thinking about myself in that situation as being incompetent and inadequate and stupid and all of these things because I've internalized somebody else's gaze, right? Or whatever, like, or somebody else's narrative projected onto me from, times before I could really advocate for myself. So it'd just be a lot of projecting going on. And it's like, there's space for that. Probably need to go talk to the lady or the man or the astrologer, like go talk to somebody and then come back and then we can unpack like why you feel that way, about yourself or about the situation. Like where is that coming from? Because this is the issue. But these are your feelings and your narratives and your projections and thoughts about yourself that are getting kind of mixed up in this. It's normal, it's natural, it's human, it's inevitable, it's always there. But it's good to know how to separate those things. And I kind of feel like Saturn moving into Pisces out of Aquarius, where Aquarius has a little bit, just air signs in general have the capacity to separate a little bit better, identity from the separate your identity from the objective situation at hand. Sometimes air signs are a little bit better at doing that, but air signs sometimes a little bit too good at doing that to where now we're only talking about the issue at hand and you're totally missing all of the emotional cues, even within yourself, that are a part of this dynamic, right? Talking to myself as well. I used to be very bad about that, getting a little bit better about it now. But that's like you gotta, the whole Pisces thing is like being able to tune in. I'm just like full stream of consciousness now, but the whole Pisces thing is like being able to tune in to the emotional frequencies of a situation that you're in, even whenever someone's not explicitly stating it. Like you got to get really good at that. I think all of us will be getting really good at that while Saturn is in Pisces. And this eclipse is like your final reminder from the nodes to like be aware of that. It's like a third level of listening where you just got to be able to like feel like, yeah, I heard what you said. And I know this is the thing that we're talking about, that we're discussing in the logical, rational sense, but like, what's really going on? Because it feels like something's going on, and I don't know what it is. And it can feel very gaslighty to like get a sense that there's like some passive aggression or some underlying tension, and then nobody will name it, or they'll just act like, well, I don't feel like that. No, I'm just like, you're just being emotional. No, no. What is this? What is that? Let's talk about that. So, anyway, let me see what y'all are saying, because now I'm just saying nonsense. Um Oh my god. When doctors try to shame me from asking, I just say, yeah, that's what my dermatologist said too. He's dead now, and they shut up. Screaming. What was y'all talking about with moons? Because I saw y'all talking about moons. Oh, I guess because she was talking about being a Scorpio moon. Yeah. I love Scorpio moons. Y'all do be a little pain in the ass sometimes. But I love Scorpio moons. Sorry for the drag. Everybody's got problems, but I collect Scorpio moons like Pokemon. Y'all see my Venus and my Jupiter, and y'all are like, oh, I feel like I belong here. And I'm like, you do. Come here. Come to Papa. Come give. I'm not gonna say that actually. Stop talking. But I do love me or love me a Scorpio moon. Just gotta crack that little shell. Taxes as a business owner is so overwhelming. It's really terrible. It really makes me feel like, why does anybody do this? Why does anybody do this? And very grateful for accountants because they do it and they get it. Some of them are not very good, but some of them do get it. And the ones who get it are a necessity. The Mercury retrograde of it all. Sorry, this is happening to you. Yes, I'm just glad we worked it out on the remix. And it's not perfect, but there's a way out. I'm a bookkeeper for a nonprofit and I have horror stories. Oh, I bet you do. So many accountants just have no empathy. Truly, and I think it's because probably a lot of accountants do be Virgos. No shade to Virgos, but sometimes it's like, "Hey Virgo, um I need a second." Just like, hold on. Hold on. The numbers, the I know I should know better, but I don't. And I just need you to be a little bit more patient with me. A little bit more patient. Let me catch up. You're hurting my feelings. I love Virgos too, though. I keep a Virgo in my pocket as well. That's literally their job. Hey, Jim. Hey, boo. At my job, people will call and say X is a problem and how they can fix it when it's really Y, and our shit system is causing issues where there shouldn't be any. That's also real. This is like my biggest Capricorn complaint because I do get into work situations and I like can't help myself. The people who got Leo and Capricorn in the chat, I know y'all feel this, where you just end up being the adult in the room all the time and people feel inclined to follow you for whatever reason. And so you just are like, okay, well, look, functionally, this system is busted. So we need to fix it. We need to like reroute some things and reorganize some things because there's a lot of problems being caused unnecessarily when really we need to lock in and do it like this. And people will be like, you're so fucking right. And you're like, thank you. Hair flip. We can be very rigid, Capricorns, very rigid, but oftentimes when it comes to creating a system and a method, baby, and don't let them have Virgo and Capricorn, please. A well-oiled machine. Thank you for articulating this. Woo, the shame spiral is all too real. I'm glad y'all feel me. Y'all feel me because it be a lot sometimes, and it takes a lot. Like I catch myself still to this day with all this knowledge I have, being in a situation where I know I just need to talk about how I feel, but it'd be certain things, especially whenever it comes to like the burden of existence that is just really hard for me to talk about and be real about. And I just like, I become very small, very little, very sensitive. Because if I am sharing about that, like, I don't want somebody to give me a solution immediately. I need somebody to just like empathize with the struggle because I'm struggling to empathize with my own struggle. So I need somebody to like help lead me into, having some empathy for myself. I'm not a problem to be solved. I just need a hug. Or when they ask the wrong department for someone and you redirect them to the right department, but they still want to talk to you. That's so real. Oh, like, no, this other person really can help you better than I can. But they're like, but we have rapport. I'm like, well, yeah, but no. Can you repeat what you understood from I said? Yeah, from what I said. Yeah, because sometimes that can also be, that can come off a way. But you say it with the right tone, there is a way to say that, like, so what are you getting from what I'm saying? Like, what are you hearing me say? Because I feel like we're on two different pages. There's a way to just kind of offer that as like, what do you think I'm saying? Like just like I feel like I'm not getting my point across because it helps to like take ownership of things sometimes. I feel like I may not be getting my point across in the way that I need to. So can you please tell me just like what you're hearing me say so that I can make sure that we're on the same page? And that usually can be disarming as well because people want to understand, but also on the receiving end might be running their own stories that you just kind of have to be like, hey, tap tap tap, like just like set that down for a second, listen to me. What I'm saying and what I mean. And then please, like, if there's something I'm missing, like, where are you getting this from? Do you have an idea or an expectation about how I'm behaving that I'm not aware of, which is extremely vulnerable for the other person to be honest about sometimes, but sometimes it's not. But offering that up as well can clear up a miscommunication if everybody's acting in good faith. But if everybody is like too overstimulated or dysregulated by the conversation, just like take a timeout. Just like 20-minute timeout. We'll reconvene. You just have to actually reconvene when everyone's calmed down and is more in the front brain space to listen. Yes, and even if that was the case, why does that bother you? Exactly. Let's talk about what's really going on. And sometimes you are being unreasonable, and that's also okay. That part. Mars is going to move back into Cancer, you guys. Sometimes you are being unreasonable, and that's also okay. That is information. That is information for you. That is information for the other person. Sometimes you got to crash out. Sometimes sometimes your spirit won't be settled until you crash out. But, be aware that you do have to deal with the ramifications of said crash out. So, crash out wisely. Like, even if you did think that, why does that bother them? That's true though. Yeah, like if somebody does think that you are this and that and the other. But yeah, I don't know. Lots to consider. Yeah, please drop a like. I would love to get 17 likes from the 17 viewers in this chat. That don't mean you should leave. Don't leave. But yeah, just throw a little like. Throw a little like on the vid on this lovely Sunday afternoon. Not two of y'all left. I knew that was gonna happen. Sometimes it be like that too. OMG, I call it being smart. You're saying important things. I don't remember what I said that y'all laughed at, but I fucks with y'all. I think it was when I was roasting Virgos a little bit. That's so funny. Wait, what are y'all saying? I love my accountant because I see I see numbers and cry even though I work with numbers. Like straight up, my brain just like turns off. It's like just like power off. Because I'm like, I don't know what any of this means. And I want to get it right, but like I just don't know the things that y'all know. Guilty of being too technical as a Virgo. Whoops. My Virgo needed that drag. I'm a Virgo sun and you're right. Like you guys are smart. I think that's the thing. Like I always say this to my Mercurials, Virgos, and Geminis. Like we be smart. We are actually smart. And a lot of times we are very well studied. Virgos sometimes more than Geminis because Geminis, I think we just learn quickly, but we don't become very precise. Virgos are a lot more precise in their knowledge, and everybody is just not like you. Everybody is not that girl in the ways that you are that girl. So rather than like having the resentment that other people, are not like you, are not that girl in the ways that you are that girl, just have a little bit more patience. A little bit more patience for the people who do not know the things that you know. Gotta let them catch up. K2 whipping me left and right, hurting my feelings, has me crying. It do. It just be like, oh my God, you're so smart. You're hurting my feelings. And a lot of people not gonna tell you that you're smart because they're bitter. Sorry. I feel like that's really the mercurial curse is just like sometimes people are not gonna tell you that you're as smart as you are. Probably because they're stealing your ideas. Or probably because it benefits them for some reason for you to think that you're not as smart as you are, and then they just keep like subtly hearing the things that you said or shared or the research that you did or whatever it was, whatever role you played, and then they're taking credit for it. Because you got Leo in your 12th house, Virgo, and that's why sometimes you need to stand up. Stand up. Don't let these people play in your face. Smart ass bitch. Don't let these people play in your face. They need you. You are needed and necessary. Just like also like be a little bit more emotionally vulnerable and available sometimes. in the process. That's all. Just a little bit more empathy sometimes from the Pisces side. Do I need to drag Pisces now too? Everybody gets a drag. You get a drag. You get a drag. I keep hearing and seeing that. I think the universe is trying to get me to crash out. Sometimes that might be, maybe. I think for me, the way Leo is set up in my chart, Leo and Capricorn are set up in my chart, is that I don't crash out because I don't want to embarrass myself, because I think crashing out is embarrassing. I think like being seen as someone who's lost control of my emotions and my composure is embarrassing. It's not. It's not. And that's why I tend to be attracted to people who do crash out and who do kind of just like people who feelings be spilling all over the place and taking up space out in the world and influencing their emotions, and people are affected by them, and they not afraid to cuss the customer service people out or whatever's going on. You should be nice to service workers, but for me, I'm like, no, I need to be like composed and mature or whatever. And I like to be perceived as someone who's in control of myself. And so losing control of myself, I'm like, I don't like to be seen that way. But it's good for you sometimes. It's not about embarrassment for me, because once I get going, I'm gone. So maybe just more about like not wanting to lose control, because yeah, once you go, it's hard to come back. I resonate with that as well. Once you pop the lid off that bitch, it's overflowing. And I don't like that either. But it's more of a control thing in that sense. But to me, yes, I'm like, it's very, I don't like that. I don't like that. But when other people do it, I'd be like, go off, bitch. Say that shit. Talk to these niggas. Like, I like it when other people do it. So I gotta keep the black cat femmes around me. And mind you, in certain situations, I do also have to become indignant and puff out my chest and wild out in certain ways. You can be very protective. I can do it for somebody else better than for myself sometimes, He said no pickles. Hell yeah. I need somebody to be a Karen for me in the situations where I don't need somebody to do it for me. It's nice when someone does it for me. I need to tap into my own inner Karen sometimes, like with these accountants, and be like, listen, bitch, you're not finna play with me no more. Okay? Like, quit playing in my face. I'm about to go somewhere else. Like, that's enough. Give me my money back. Give me my money back. I'm gonna have somebody else do it. You're not gonna act right. Everything is embarrassing. Jim, I know you feel me. Because yes, I feel you. But yeah, my black cats, I fuck with y'all heavy. I fuck with y'all the long way. Keep being you, and just find more people like me who like when you being you. And just like when we're being together, just be nice to me. Just be nice to me. I'm sensitive. Ain't no coming back from me crashing out. Yes, it's about me losing control all my Aries. Okay, that makes sense for sure. So just like, I'm gonna just keep this in. Woosah. What don't you say? Woosah. Because you're not about to play in my face. I want to be able to be in control of me. And if I can't, that means somebody took me to a place and I allowed it. Gagged. Because exactly that. Exactly that. Now I got to be mad at me and you at the same time. And we didn't even have to do all that. If I would have had my boundaries in the first place. Not too much on me, but also realistically. What did I just walk into? I don't even know. There's no transits this week, so I'm kind of speaking retrospectively on the Leo eclipse that just passed on Friday, and then the Mercury stationary retrograde yesterday. But I think I'm just speaking to everything in the sky at once. Like these are just the vibes. I'm not pinning it on one single transit. It's just it's the container. It's the air that we're breathing right now, and it's the last wrap up of Saturn and Aquarius as well, where like the whole purpose of all of this last 3 years of Saturn and Aquarius is like, do you know who you are? Right? And now we're moving into the eclipses, the Leo and Aquarius eclipses over the next year and a half that says, well, then you better act like it. Do you know who you are? Bet. Act like it. With your chest. Say that. Scary. If I would have had my boundaries in the first place. Because now we at the point where we finna scrap. Ain't no more talking. Exactly. Let me go ahead and make this in between therapy appointment. My lion looking cat jumped up on me last night to wake me up. Girl, Leo eclipse. Yep. Period. That's so funny. Yeah, dignity and self-respect says, stand up. Stand up. Don't let these people play in your face. Hold on, I got a message. We're gonna have hot chocolate. Okay, what y'all saying? I need to stop reading the news because it makes me too mad, but I don't want to not know. Just yeah. I feel like what I'm trying to do more now is unless it's a political commentator talking about it, I don't need to listen to them people talk myself because I will lose it. I will lose it. I just don't need to. I don't need to hear what that man is saying directly out his mouth. It's not good for me. I will listen to somebody else give me a recap or play a clip or something. But ultimately, I don't want to know anything else that man is suggesting. I only want to know if it has been implemented, if it is in practice, if it is active. If it's just a speculation of something he might do or something he's proposed, or if someone has introduced a bill, or if something is in a stage where it hasn't actually like passed and is being implemented, I don't need to hear about it. I don't need to hear about it. Some people do need to hear about it. Me personally, though, I don't need to hear about it because he's done too much of like threatening this and that and saying he's going to do something and then he tries to do it and then it gets blocked and then it's like, well, why did I get all worked up? And it's good to like plan, and to anticipate things to a certain extent, but it's like you have to be aware of your own amount of how much you can control of something, of your own environment. Like, for example, if I know that there's a possibility that these like trans bans, these trans bans are going to be passed in Texas, like, yes, I need to be aware of that. But if there's not anything I can do about that immediately in terms of, I don't know, if there's not anything I can do about that immediately while it's in these entry stages outside of like, there's just like a long game that you got to play with some of these things. And so it's like, if there's not something I can do immediately that's going to change the trajectory of the situation, then I can get my ducks in a row, but I don't need to sit and obsess over it. Like that's not productive for anybody. I need to do what I can control, have the conversations I need to have with people and stuff like that, but I don't need to think about it every single day or look at it every single day in a way that's going to keep me from being able to function and do the things that I need to do, right? There's only so many things that we can control at once. And I don't say that in the defeatist sense. I just say that in the like, do what you can do, but you don't need to do everything. You can't do everything. It's like an awareness of your own limitations. Maybe that's some of the eclipse shit for me being on my Mars. It's just like be aware of what you can do and the things that you can't do, you gotta let go. Just gotta let it go. Let it play out rather. But I don't know. Um, it's almost been an hour and a half. Does anybody else have any questions or comments? Because I think that's it from me. I don't know if I have anything else to add at this moment. I think I'm gonna keep our transit chats to Sunday at noon. I kind of like this. It seems like a lot of y'all were able to show up too, which I like. Because Saturdays, I'm just not gonna feel like it on Saturdays. I think on Saturdays, I'm not gonna want to talk to anybody. I need to be on my bike or at the gym or on a walk or something outside until it's a billion degrees. But in general, I need to do something else on Saturdays. But Sundays, I can talk to y'all on Sundays. It's a Sunday, you know, be seen. So we'll do that. Yeah, I feel like noon works good for both time zones. Um, I would like to resume political education at some point, but I'm not going to be in a space to teach while I'm learning my new job, so I'm not going to put that pressure on myself. Um, what else? What else? What else? Thank y'all for booking with me. Those of you who did book sessions with me, if I've seen you already or if I'm seeing you this week, I really appreciate. I need y'all to know how much that really, really helped me out. One, because my first paycheck is not going to be till the end of April. Um, so it helps with that sense. It's going to help with taxes because I always owe. It's just really helpful. Like y'all have really had my back, so thank you. Um, and it's just nice to talk to y'all. I love doing readings. If I really could sustain my life doing that, I would. But yeah, I'm trusting my own process that I am getting into this job for something that I need to learn about myself, especially with Jupiter moving into my first house. Shout out to the Geminis. The Geminis. Trying to make sure there wasn't something else that came up over the last week that I needed to share with y'all about the sky. Excuse me. I think that's it. Y'all have been delightful. Thanks for letting me run my mouth. It was a fun chat. I appreciate that y'all just let me pull up here and talk about whatever. Venus conjunct Mercury? Good question. I think actually, let me look at it. Let me look at it. Venus conjunct Mercury is so we get Sun conjunct Venus this weekend on the 22nd. Venus conjunct Mercury. Oh, that was last week. Last Tuesday. That was a weird day. Um, I think that's a lot of what we were talking about today, actually. The idea of like communication and relationships. Because Venus is moving backwards. So I don't know. I think retrogrades in general, because somebody did ask the question of like, why do people always have a negative hey Bree, why do people always have like a negative perception on retrogrades and eclipses and whatever? Like, why is there never anything good coming? And it's like, well, for one, I think that's mostly just because people don't like change. Change is not fun. So, mm, um, change is uncomfortable. Humans don't like change. Humans like um repetition and routine and to be able to like know what to expect. So change feels very destructive. It's the tower in tarot, it just like everything that I thought was true and knew to be true is not true anymore. What do I do? Things are changing. It's disruptive, right? So um I think that's just like a bias that we have towards things changing. But I find that retrogrades through all of the planets have a way of it's just retrograde is literally to me just run that back. Hold on. Run that back real quick. And it's the same as like if you are listening to a song for the first time and you hear them say something in the song and you're like, "Hold on, run that back." It's like rewind it. And it hits different when you hear it the second time. You just are like, "Oh, I totally missed that the first time." Or like it didn't really hit me the same way the first time as it did the second time because when you go through something the first time, you're like having to process a lot of new information all at once. And it's just like a lot, there's a lot that you miss. And so the retrograde literally allows you to retrace your steps, go back over it one more time, and then see it from the perspective of having already seen it once, which is very judgment card to me. And I think we talked about that in the last reading. The whole thing of judgment is like, wow, like, I was ignorant the first time that I went through that thing, but now I have some perspective on it. Now I like have information that I didn't have before, so I can go through this differently. And the whole act of repeating something, one means that you get better at it. Two means that you gain perspective, like we said. And it also just gives you an opportunity to do it differently or to end up somewhere different than maybe you originally would have. So that being said, Venus kissing Mercury while walking backwards is kind of like Venus is retracing her steps of like, okay, what happened here? And then Mercury comes along and says, maybe here's some language you didn't have the first time. Or here's a conversation maybe that you didn't have the first time. Or someone's going to voice something or add something into the conversation that wasn't there before that maybe gives you in Pisces, gives you some context that you needed on this relationship or this dynamic you have with somebody else or the situation that you're dealing with this other person or this other group or um this thing that you like or whatever it is. It's like here's something new that you didn't have before. Take that with you. Get curious about this because you probably didn't wonder about this before, but now you can think about it differently. And then Venus is going to be like, oh shit, okay, bet. um Hold on. Okay. um I look at it as a chance to add more context when I'm not being bitter. Exactly. This Venus retrograde has been so disruptive, and I needed that personally. Yeah, same. Honestly, like, so yeah. Depending on where your Pisces house is, um, depending on your Jupiter and what your Jupiter be doing in your chart and how it relates to your Pisces house. Um, if you have planets in Pisces, yourself, whatever it is, like all of that's more information in terms of how you are um emotionally imposing, how you're imposing new meaning into your relationships or how you are getting more familiar, especially with the sun being in Pisces now, how you are getting more insight or awareness really into the meanings that you apply to whatever's going on in your Pisces house, your relationships in your Pisces house, relational dynamics in your Pisces house, and communication styles in your Pisces house, awareness of your own feelings and emotions, and but especially like the way that your feelings informs the meanings that you give to things. A lot of that, like I said, is going to depend on your Jupiter placement and how your Jupiter placement creates meaning, and what experiences specifically really stand out to you that a lot of these like narratives, these personal narratives first started. It's always about reflecting when it comes to Jupiter stuff because the past is going to tell you a lot about the present and the future with Jupiter. Those are my thoughts. Hey, Kratos. Glad you made it. So, yeah. And any other questions before I go? Holding space for the delay. Okay. I'm going to go eat lunch. Gonna go have some lunchies. I appreciate y'all so much. Thank you for listening. Like the video if you haven't already. Subscribe if you haven't already so you can be notified every time that I go live, whether it's on Sundays at noon Central Daylight Time or if it is a random time during the week that I just maybe got to get something off my chest real quick. My books have not officially closed in the sense that if there's a spot available, then take it. But as far as I can tell, there may not be any spots available anymore. So you can be on the lookout in case somebody cancels or reschedules or something. But I am booked to the gills. So, but I will be around. And when I have more brain power to share, I will reopen for a certain amount of readings each month, I think. Cuz I like y'all and I don't want to lose my touch. Cuz it's hard to do readings when you haven't been doing readings. I'm going to have to bother my coworkers all the time about their charts just to feel something. Okay. I love y'all so much. Thank you. I will talk to you very, very soon. I will see y'all on the internet. Toodaloo. Cue music.